I told you I loved you, would it make any difference?
If you told me, if I believed you.
This week on At the Movies, Julia Roberts and Clive Owen are spies with a steamy past in Duplicity.
The numbers are a warning. They're a warning to everyone.
Nicolas Cage tries to avert disaster in Knowing.
I could be in Venice by 5. I can do that.
It's a mandate. This is a mandate.
Plus, Paul Rudd and Jason Segel get bro.
Remember me? This wasn't an accident, was it? Being here, meeting like this.
Can you imagine living like this? How much do you think you'd need?
20 million?
I was thinking 40.
So what do you have to do to get $40 million?
Julia Roberts and Clive Owen play a game of cat and mouse. I'm Ben Lyons from E! Entertainment.
And I'm Ben Mankiewicz from Turner Classic Movies. Do not be thrown by the trailers to the Julia Roberts, Clive Owen movie Duplicity. This is not a CIA MI6 spy thriller. It's more of a satirical look at corporate espionage. Roberts and Owen are former spies now working at competing corporate giants, companies that make everything from food to hair care products to lotions and creams. There's a difference. But not surprisingly, we learned Roberts and Owen have a history from their spy days, one Roberts denies.
You clearly have me confused with someone else.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not great on names. I should be. I try. Faces, I'm definitely better. Faces, I'm like a B, B minus. Where I'm good, where I really excel, people I've slept with. That's been a traditional area of strength for me.
This story, to borrow a phrase many of us learned in The Sting, is a long con. And writer-director Tony Gilroy effectively uses flashbacks to deliberately mislead the audience as to who's conning whom. Playing the CEOs of the rival companies are two of the best actors in the business, Tom Wilkinson and Paul Giamatti. Giamatti here plots with Roberts and Owen to take down Wilkinson.
Who picked this place?
You have a problem.
It's a little bright.
So this gentleman here is...
I know who he is.
You do? Even with the hat?
She's a trained professional.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know somebody is getting conned in Duplicity, but I have to admit, I had it wrong. There are a few moments where you'll certainly have to suspend disbelief, but Owen and Roberts have nice chemistry as lovers completely incapable of trusting each other.
Claire, I swear on all things good and true, I have no idea who they belong to. And the fact that you don't believe me, the fact that we've been through everything that we've been through, and that you still don't trust me on this is quite frankly disturbing.
Well, in that case, I'll put them back on.
And Gilroy keeps it all moving at a steady, stylish pace. Ben, I think Duplicity is worth seeing.
I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the trailers at the top of your review, because whether they look like a CIA thriller or romantic comedy, it doesn't really capture the spirit of this movie. Yeah. And this is a really good movie, and I think people should see it. Tony Gilroy, who's one of the more accomplished writers in Hollywood, has finally caught the directing bug, and he did Michael Clayton from 2 years back, and now with Duplicity, he's developing a nice body of work. And you mentioned the style and pace of the film, and I think that's what works here with Duplicity. There are these little vignettes, these flashbacks to Owen and Roberts getting to know each other over the years that are nice sort of bookends as we move forward throughout the story. And I think they did a much better job using the locations in this film than Owen did a few months back in The International opposite Naomi Watts. That was a whole CIA international film, and around the world, the locations didn't hold up like they did here in Duplicity.
You mentioned the little vignettes. There's one in particular with Carrie Preston, who plays essentially a corporate travel agent who has a brief fling with Clive Owen, and I thought she was really terrific and worth mentioning. You know, Julia Roberts has not headlined a movie as Julia Roberts in above the title since 2003, going all the way back to Mona Lisa Smile.
And supporting work over the years, sure, Raise a Family, but yeah, not like Julia Roberts and Clive Owen. Sure.
And I think generally the reaction to this will be that Julia Roberts still has it.
Ben, something else that people are going to take away from this film is that Clive Owen is funny. He's pretty charming and charismatic in this. He's always the guy in the suit and kind of brooding in other films, but here he shows a comedic side to him, which I was really impressed by. I definitely see Duplicity. Our next film is The Cake Eaters, starring Kristen Stewart and Aaron Stanford. Directed by Mary Stuart Masterson, the movie is set in rural, small-town America and centers on the connecting storylines between the generations of two families. In her most impressive work to date, next to Into the Wild, Stewart plays 15-year-old Georgia, who is suffering from a crippling disease and wants to experience sex for the first time before it's too late.
I have a date tonight.
No, absolutely not. He's too old for you. He's a teacher at your school.
He actually just works in the lunchroom. I'm going. Let me.
Beagle, played by Stanford, has spent much of his life caring for his dying mother, played by Oscar nominee Melissa Leo. Because Georgia is sick and Beagle is older and works at her school, they have to sneak around and hide their relationship from their respective families. Ironically, it's Beagle's father, Easy, played by Bruce Dern, who's having an affair of his own with Georgia's eccentric, cigarette-smoking grandmother.
Did you notice anything funny about the way your son was looking at my Georgia today?
There you go. No, ma'am. That's just Beagle. He's got absolutely no game in that area, trust me.
The film establishes the intricate character dynamics with a guiding hand, not a forceful one, which I appreciate, although not all of the relationships on screen are fully fleshed out. The camera work is a little flat and the lighting dark, not in tone or style, just not lit or shot particularly well. Despite those technical issues, and because of Kristen Stewart's standout performance, I think you should rent The Cake Eaters, which is in limited theatrical release right now, and it's also coming out on DVD this Tuesday.
You mentioned the director, first-time director, Mary Stuart Masterson, Ben, much better known as an actress, Some Kind of Wonderful, late 80s, early 90s, Fried Green Tomatoes. I think she does a credible job here, in particular, letting her actors breathe, letting them be actors. She's clearly going to be an actor's director. In particular, Kristen Stewart from Twilight, everybody knows her best as. She made this movie a couple of years ago, and this is, I think, an impressive performance. I think there is a future in directing for Mary Stuart Masterson.
Standout performances, interesting character dynamics, but overall, kind of a flat film that really doesn't have you too emotionally invested. You do watch the performances, and you do appreciate what Kristen Stewart is doing here, and Aaron Stanford, who people know from the X-Men movies, but overall, the film suffers because Mary Stuart Masterson is not a director by trade. I appreciate her giving her actors room to breathe, but the film feels a little short because of that.
Well, I thought it really picked up in the final 30 minutes. I agree with you. For about an hour, I thought, why is this movie significant? I don't hate it, certainly, but why is it significant? Then at the end, it started to come together a little bit, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, and I thought, you know what, I like it better now. Overall, I'm going to agree with you that in the end, The Cake Eater's worth renting.
Coming up next, Jason Segel shows Paul Rudd the ropes of manhood in I Love You, Man.
And later, Nicolas Cage tries to save the world in No One.
In some kind of tragedy.
What do you guys do for 7 straight hours?
Yeah, Pete.
So is he your best man?
It's way too early to tell. Sweet, sweet hanging.
Next up, I Love You, Man, which we reviewed a couple weeks back on the show. It opens this weekend. Paul Rudd's Peter is about to get married to Zoe, played by Rashida Jones, when they realize that he doesn't have any male friends, let alone a best man. She, of course, has an entourage of bridesmaids led by Jamie Presley.
I'm fine with a little mercury poisoning as long as it means I get to eat raw fish, because I love it so much.
My doctor said it's really bad if you're trying to get pregnant.
I heard that.
Which Barry and I are doing.
Oh my God, that's so exciting!
Ew. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
So Peter goes on the hunt for a best man. He first tries to befriend Presley's gambling, cigar-smoking husband, played by Jon Favreau, and it does not go according to plan.
Do you play an instrument? Because I was going to say, if you wanted to jam with us, you know, that'd be cool. But you don't have... You have a piano in your house, though, don't you?
Yeah, I don't play.
Really? Why do you have a piano?
The decorator put it there.
You're dead.
Peter meets Sydney, played by Jason Segel, and a bromance is born.
Hey, geek! I just stepped in your dog's crap! Peter, run!
Rudd's impressive streak continues, aside from Over Her Dead Body, of starring in smart, funny films for grown-ups. I had a lot of fun with I Love You, Man, and I think you will too. You should see it.
Yeah, you know, writer-director John Hamburg really sort of nailed this script, and my only regret in this movie is that there is a little too much bathroom humor and a little too much vomit. I don't mind the lowest common denominator stuff. It's just, it's unnecessary. He nailed it. He had it. These guys are very funny.
But the film seems adults and grown-up beyond that, but I agree with you.
I agree. I just mean it's almost perfect, and then we just don't need that stuff. You know, that's like almost when you got nothing else, and I thought they had enough here. I just wish they hadn't gone there. But, you know, large part, I agree with you. This is an exceptionally funny movie.
And the reason they have enough here is because of the dynamic between Rudd and Segel. They have worked together before recently in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but there's just a chemistry and a connection that's formed between the characters on screen that immediately gets you into the film.
I want to make one other thing clear. In our early review, I talked a lot about how good Paul Rudd was, and I think his comic timing is outstanding. I do want to give credit also to Jason Segel, whose Sidney Fife character could so easily have been cartoonish, a caricature, but he gave him real depth and humor. Those two guys together, why I think people should see I Love You, Man. Coming up next, Nicolas Cage deciphers the future in Knowing.
And later, a movie that we both think is the best movie of the year so far.
Is everything okay?
I'm sorry, sir, but you need to get back to your car.
Anybody hurt?
A couple of injuries, but nothing serious.
Our next film is an apocalyptic Nicolas Cage sci-fi thriller, Knowing, from Dark City director Alex Proyas. Cage plays a widowed MIT professor who discovers that a time capsule buried 50 years earlier by former students at his son's school contains a sheet with coded numbers that appear to have accurately predicted the date and death toll of every major tragedy over the last half-century.
Earthquakes, fires, tsunamis. The next number on the chain predicts that tomorrow, somewhere on the planet, 81 people are going to die in some kind of tragedy.
As Cage starts piecing the clues together, he realizes, somehow, and this is a big flaw in the film, that this all has to do with his son, played by Chandler Canterbury. In the meantime, Cage tries to prevent the 3 tragedies the coded numbers say haven't happened yet.
Move back! Move back!
That subway accident was harrowing, both visually arresting and alarming, certainly. No surprise, though, coming from Proyas, whose Dark City, if nothing else, was visually stunning. But it's the story here that's the real problem. Cage leaps from assumption to theory to action without a linear path. And the film's third act undermined whatever suspense the intriguing coded numbers had built up earlier.
I'm taking them to the cave.
Stay where you are. I'll be right there.
No, if we go to the caves, we have a chance. You said the sun can't reach that far.
The caves won't save us. Nothing can.
There's also a totally telegraphed, biblically themed climax that just did not work. There is a lot to look at here, but not enough. Skip Knowing.
I'm always amazed, Mank, when people get to a certain point in their career where they've won an Oscar, they've been part of huge franchise films, and they have all the money that they would ever need, and they gravitate towards such lousy material. And that's the case here with Nicolas Cage. There's nothing really special about this film other than an interesting premise.
I did like the premise, and I was intrigued for about 45 minutes or so. The idea that sort of these coded numbers, what did they mean? Is it really possible that a young girl 50 years earlier predicted every tragedy? But then things started to fall off the deep end very quickly. In fact, about 30 minutes in or so, I wrote on my notes, uh-oh, we're headed for a heavy-handed biblical finale, which, of course, we got.
But it doesn't allow the audience to try and figure out the numbers. You're just waiting for Nick Cage to explain the formula to you, which he does effectively, but you have to take his word for it. There's no kind of interaction where the audience can sort of get involved. One thing that bothered me in your review, Ben, you mentioned the special effects. I didn't think there was really anything special about them. Sure, they look a little terrifying, I guess, at times, because it's stuff that hits close to home, but they look like they're from 10 years ago. When you compare them to first-rate films like Transformers, or even something lesser like The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is by no means a good movie, those effects are far superior to the ones here in Knowing.
Well, we found something we disagree on. I thought both the subway crash and the plane crash were sort of particularly powerful, and certainly, by the way, better than anything in The Day the Earth Stood Still.
One thing I know for sure, you can skip Knowing. Sin Nombre, from first-time writer-director Cary Fukunaga, tells 2 powerful, intersecting stories of immigration through Mexico to the U.S. border. The movie opens with Smiley, a 12-year-old boy being recruited to join La Mara, a ruthless gang by a teenager named Willie. The gang robs fleeing refugees on industrial trains that run from the south of Mexico up to the United States. When a split-second decision changes the course of Willie's life forever, he befriends Saira and forms an instant bond with a Honduran girl dreaming of making it to the States.
Mira, bruja, me dijo con voz de miedo. Vas a llegar a los Estados Unidos, pero no de la mano de Dios, sino de la garra del diablo.
The 2 embark on a journey where they risk their lives in hopes of making new ones.
Yo no puedo cuidarte, ¿no?
No, si no te lo estoy pidiendo, Mike.
Pero el amor de Dios, Zaira, date cuenta que yo ya estoy muerto, que no agarras color.
The combination of professional actors and locals is effective and adds to the unique telling of this immigrant story. Interesting to note here, the film won awards at the Sundance Film Festival for both directing and cinematography, and for good reason. I know it's only March, but Sin Nombre is the best film I've seen so far this year. I think you should see it, and I think this has a good chance of making my top 10 list this year.
The actors, Paulina Gaetan, the girl, and Edgar Flores, the boy, really outstanding. And the authenticity, I think, comes from Cary Fukunaga, the writer and director. He went down and rode on top of this train with immigrants trying to work their way from Central America to the U.S. border. And that realism really pops, really comes alive in this movie. You feel almost like there's a documentary feel to what is clearly a very dramatic story.
Absolutely, and it's that authenticity with the gang members and the violence that really hits home. I mean, when you see those tattoos and each one is a symbol for something that's happened to them throughout their lives, a lot of those guys are real gang members from that part of the world. Terrifying stuff. There's a real beauty to the film in a strange way, definitely. Yeah. And it's definitely a violent movie and gritty and in the spirit of Slumdog Millionaire and City of God.
You mentioned winning the cinematography award at Sundance. Adriano Goldman shot this movie, obviously deserves a lot of credit, along with Cary Fukunaga. And I agree with you. This, so far, being March, is the best film I've seen this year. I think you should see it.
Coming up next, one of last year's Oscar-nominated animated films that's in our DVD Out Now segment.
I can be a valuable addition to your team.
This is totally awesome! Why don't you try it?
No thanks. It's really a dog thing.
Time to take a look at DVDs Out Now. 2008 was a banner year for animation. One of the highlights being, of course, Bolt, which was nominated for an Academy Award and is my pick this week. It's the story of a little girl, voiced by Miley Cyrus, and her dog, who thinks he has superpowers, and he's voiced by John Travolta.
There's no turning back. Guess I'll have to roll with the punches. Easy won't be part of the equation. Promise. Gotta warn you, going into the belly of the beast, danger at every turn. I eat danger for breakfast.
There's a hilarious hamster named Rhino, which will keep audiences both young and old entertained. Not as good as Kung Fu Panda or WALL-E or as it was on the big screen in 3D, but a fun, lighthearted road trip adventure about friendship and determination.
My pick is the Forbidden Hollywood Collection Volume 3, 6 pre-code movies directed by William Wellman. Pre-code means they were released before the Hays Code dictated morality in Hollywood films in 1934. So these movies have out-of-wedlock pregnancies, infidelity, and mail-order brides, among other vices. They also feature some big stars: James Cagney, Mary Astor, and Joan Blondell, and Other Men's Women, Barbara Stanwyck in The Purchase Price, Loretta Young in Midnight Mary, and Heroes for Sale. There's also a terrific documentary on the famously tough Wellman, narrated by Alec Baldwin, reminding us that Wild Bill Wellman makes Clint Eastwood look like Dr. Phil.
So both Bolt and the Forbidden Hollywood Collection Volume 3 will be in stores on Tuesday. And available right now, 3 movies we reviewed on previous shows: Kristen Stewart and Rob Pattinson in Twilight, Adrian Brody and Beyonce Knowles in Cadillac Records, plus The Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Want to know what you can't miss this weekend? Stay tuned for my 3 to see.
You want to live with Dad for the rest of your life?
Is everywhere. You just have to unwrap it. Hershey's Bliss Chocolate.
Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago. Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience. Located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
All right, time to recap the movies on this week's show. We both say see Duplicity, and we agree that you can rent The Cake Eaters. We strongly encourage you to see I Love You, Man. You can definitely skip Knowing, and we agree you should see Sin Nombre.
My 3 to see this week begins with a terrific little film with a genuine indie feel from first-time screenwriter Megan Hawley. Sunshine Cleaning stars Amy Adams and Emily Blunt as sisters struggling emotionally and economically in Albuquerque, New Mexico. With an assist from her married lover, Adams sets the sisters up with a business that cleans up homes and businesses following violent crimes and suicides. Alan Arkin plays their father, essentially recreating the role he won an Oscar for in 2007's Little Miss Sunshine. At number 2, I Love You, Man, from co-writer-director John Hamburg. We talked about it on this week's show. Rashida Jones and Jason Segel are very funny, no doubt, but Paul Rudd really shines here. He is masterful in his complete inability to coolly extricate himself from any conversation with another guy. And at number 1, it's early in the year, but Ben and I both think Sin Nombre is the best film we've seen in 2009. It's harrowing, tragic, and inspiring, all shot vividly by writer-director Cary Fukunaga. Trust me, this is not a story you've seen before.
That's it for now. Remember, we're always online on atthemoviestv.com.
We'll leave you with a look at releases coming soon, and until next week, we will be at the movies.
Welcome! We are here to destroy you!
You been drinking drugs?
I think I had a bad corn dog.
Yeah, don't ever eat the corn dogs.
Sausage, bacon, cheese. Hey, potatoes, you're not in Idaho anymore. 3 new creations from IHOP, the International House of Loaded Country Hash Browns.
Activon Ultra Strength for powerful pain relief. A convenient applicator means no messy creams. Activon, applied directly where it hurts for joint pain, muscle pain, arthritis, and backache.
Guess what superfruit is taking America by storm? Sunsweet prunes. How do you like the individual wrappers?
It's not dry at all.
They're delicious.
Sunsweet Ones, the remarkable superfruit.
Millions of pet owners trust 1-800-PET-MEDS for fast service, free shipping, and big savings. Call now or order online from 1-800-PET-MEDS, America's largest pet pharmacy.